Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Bucci, and I'm the Vice Chairman-elect of the Putnam County Business Council. And I'm here today with one of my good friends and local business leaders, Mr. Nick D'Andrea of Park Ford in Mahopac. For those of you that don't know, Nick D'Andrea has been part of his family business, Park Ford, for the last 20 years that it's been in Mahopac. He had maybe a reduced role 20 years ago than he does now, but he's been a part of it for quite some time. Right now, he's the assistant general manager of Park Ford. And one of the reasons why we had him on today was because we want to start to build some awareness with his customers, as well as customers obviously in the community, as per what the auto industry in Putnam County has been going through, and what he's been hearing from a lot of his customers about their fears and what experiences have been kind of taken away from them or just adjusted, where the industry is going to continue to go on and flourish. And wanted to continue to talk about that and get the conversation going. So I'm here with Nick today. And Nick, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Glad to be here and glad to speak on some of the things that you're going to ask me today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I guess one of the first things I wanted to ask you, and it's really not about profit and loss, which we never want to talk about at Putnam County Business Council when we're putting these videos out. So I'm not asking you this question in terms of like, how has this affected your financial bottom line? I want to ask you, how has COVID-19 affected your business? So can you give me a couple of examples about how this has changed or just modified some of the things you're doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was the insurity in the beginning is really was the biggest thing, is especially as a business owner. You're trying to figure out, are you an essential business? Are you not an essential business?
Right.
When am I going to be an essential business? When can I open? It's a lot going on, and your employees are asking you questions.
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out if, I'm going to have these people on board next week,
Right.
or,
Right.
How am I going to pay these folks, and are my customers going to feel comfortable coming in through my doors? So the uncertainty was difficult to deal with in the beginning. Once things started to smooth out and we got some answers from our governor and, from the federal government, it started to get a little bit easier.
Right.
But being in the automotive field, we luckily were an essential business off the bat. So
Great.
that kind of helped our minds at ease a little bit. Not that the demand was there and all that, but we did weather the storm when we had to.
Yeah.
So my business got affected in that regard. It also got affected as far as how we conduct our business. So
Yeah.
things changed as far as how we communicate with our customers, how we communicate with our employees. And it changed dramatically, but in a positive way.
Yeah. So give me some examples. Like when the first, when March started to roll around, and, I remember watching the news, and it's, this is just a mild flu. This isn't really a big deal. And then it turns into, there's thousands of people, then it's the first case, then it's this and it's that. Talk to me a little bit about the conversations at the dealership in terms of like, are we going to shut down? Are we going to have to close down? Are we going to cut our staff? Talk to me a little bit about, how that affected you in the beginning.
Well, I mean, so I think our biggest fear was what if one of our employees got coronavirus?
Sure. Yeah,
So because at that point now we're talking about nobody can be in the building at that point, right?
Right. Sure.
Automatic, no matter what, 2 weeks shut down off the bat. Right. We're not going to do business.
Right.
So our first priority was to make sure our employees were safe. Our employees were comfortable coming to work.
Right.
And then, once we got around that hump, we kind of said to ourselves, okay, what parts of our business do we need to have right here and now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we realized pretty quickly that we didn't need to have our entire sales staff, our entire office staff here every day, and what parts of our business can work remotely and do so successfully. And those two parts of the business were kind of able to do so. But we realized too that people still need to get their cars serviced. People are still driving. The essential workers out there. So if someone needs an oil change or tires or brakes, we had to be there to serve our customers. So
yeah,
we knew right away that our service staff was going to be there through and through.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of reactive stuff that you had to do as the pandemic started to unfold before our eyes. So as an automobile industry expert, because you literally have been doing this for quite some time with your family, proactively, what were some of the business changes, the decisions in the locker room, in the back office, at home, in the car, that you and your dad and your family and the staff talked about? What adjustments did you say early on you were going to make to get yourself through this and continue to give great experiences, not just to the service customers, but to the customers that expect to come see a car. So what were some of the adjustments you made?
Yeah, so this was some of the stuff that I kind of enjoyed,
Okay.
because it was changes that I've wanted to make for quite some while now.
Yeah.
And it really was how to reach a customer and
Funny, Nick, it's so funny that you say it that way. It's almost like, and Nick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but so many business owners have said this to me, that I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I was afraid because I didn't know if the customer would want it. I didn't know if the market would want it. And it's almost like we all, in a lot of cases, were put in situations where we could test experiences for people and almost be applauded for it. Is that fair?
yeah. So it
Go
was
ahead.
way cool. It was way cool to be able to do some of that stuff. And I mean, what's wrong with a FaceTime call for a video walk around of a
Wow.
vehicle?
Wow.
Or if a customer does pick up a vehicle, when we were allowed to deliver vehicles again, and a customer picks up a vehicle, I'm not comfortable, and the customer's not comfortable sitting in that vehicle with me while I show them all the technology that's in that car. But if I'm in that same car on my lot that I have as a demo, and that customer's sitting in their house in the vehicle that they purchased, and I'm on a FaceTime call with them showing them how to use all the bells and whistles, it's like we're right there. So, it's stuff that we never did before, but now it's almost like second nature for the
Yeah.
salespeople, and it goes a long way because I mean I have customers that don't want to drive here, but they still want to see the car, or even if they have a trade they want to show me, they're doing a video walk around of their vehicle, showing me the tires,
Yeah.
the close up of the interior, so I can see what it looks like, stuff like that, and it worked out fine. So it was stuff like that that we adapted to. Our internet business changed dramatically because
Yeah.
obviously most of the stuff's going to be through internet
Yeah.
leads at this point going forward. So we focused a lot more attention on that, answering our leads properly, which we should have been doing all along. But sometimes you get caught up when there's people in the showroom and you get a little.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you, and I mean to make this into, like, in other words, I'm not in the car business. So in other words, maybe people that aren't really motivated to buy something are going online, but the people that are really motivated are in the shop, and you only have so many people, so you got to focus on them. But now it's like you have these leads, as you call them, right? People that are calling in with questions or emails, and through the website, that has become a major channel of your customer flow. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's increased dramatically over the past few months as far as where we're getting our customer base from. And not that they're not our customers already that have bought vehicles from here or service vehicles here, but they just feel more comfortable doing it from a distance rather than being in the showroom.
That's great. That's great. I had another example, and it was a friend of mine who owns a barbershop in Mahopac, Bobby, over at Cozy Barbershop, where I love Bobby, and Bobby knows I love him. I've had a relationship with him for like 10 years. But Bobby's really busy because he's a really good barber. And he's got like 4 chairs at the barbershop, and sometimes he only has 2 barbers, and there's 8 people waiting for a haircut.
Yeah.
And I love a good haircut, but sometimes I don't have time to wait or come back, and I can't stay. And so sometimes, a lot of us, we sometimes change who we use, or we go someplace else to have a different experience just because of time or because of just simplicity. And now, because of this whole pandemic, you can't just walk into a barbershop anymore. You have to call ahead. You have to schedule an appointment. And he started to use this technology called Bucci, where you schedule an appointment and you show up when there's an appointment. It's something I've wanted for years. I know you have beautiful long hair. You don't need a barber, but for me to keep a fade like this, I got to go every 2 weeks. So I'm kidding. Every 20 days, not every. So to book an appointment is really cool. But the point is that if we rewind back 6 months, I'm sure a lot of his customers, and I'm sure a lot of your customers, if you said to them, you have to schedule a meeting with me through this app in order to have a virtual one-on-one they'd be like, no way. I'm just going to drive down the street. I'm going to go see this guy, and I'm just going to do it this way. So there's been a lot of acceptance by customers and our clients to adapt to new technologies and new ways to consume the services and goods that we like. So do you have any examples of that in your own world where you said to yourself, man, I can't believe that people are interacting this way right now? Can you give a couple of examples?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things prior to the pandemic that I always struggled with, I was always trying to engrave into my sales team's heads was you need to set an appointment for this customer coming in.
Mm.
So just like you do at the doctor's office, if you have a 2 o'clock appointment, you don't show up at 1 o'clock. You show up at 2 o'clock, right? Because they're not going to get you in at 1 o'clock. Someone's there for 1 o'clock.
Right.
So when you commit to an appointment as a consumer, and as our team has kind of helped them commit to the appointment, not only does it help us because we're not having too many people here at one time, we're not having a whole congested showroom,
Yep.
but also the consumer that comes through the door is a happier customer because
Sure.
they get our full undivided attention.
Sure.
They're not waiting in the waiting area to see a salesperson. And we have chosen, because right now we actually can open our doors as of the last phase of opening, but we've chosen to keep our doors locked. And the reason we've done that is because it kind of defines that appointment. Oh, Mr. Customer, you're here for an appointment. Fantastic. I have Lori waiting for you. Your 1 o'clock is all set to go. So whether they're picking up a vehicle or they're coming to look at a vehicle, it's working out fantastic. So that appointment-based idea, which really should have been going on for a long time, is kind of engraved in everybody's heads now. And thankfully, the consumers have stepped up to the plate, and they've done a great job of understanding everything. So it's working out really, really well.
That's a great example. I mean, in the hair cutting industry where you're, really next to somebody and they're cutting your hair, you can't have 20 people in there. So I think the level of acceptance in that industry specifically is high. People, that makes a lot of cognitive sense to them. I hope that continues to work for you, but it might not. Maybe your industry is the first where the market wants to go back to the way that it was, where I can just walk in, et cetera. But I bet you that if you still offer the appointments more than you did in the past, or you ask, I bet you the market responds favorably to that, because there's going to be a lot of people out there, just like politics, where you're on this side or you're on this side, and there's not as much in the middle as there was in the past. With this COVID pandemic, there's probably going to be a lot of people that maybe don't want to say it out loud, but would prefer an appointment.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, again, and the people that
and for time,
the backlash that you might get, all it might take is a small conversation of trying to let that person realize why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Not just for us, but for you as well.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about it now that phase 1 and phase 2 and all the things are going on in New York and in Putnam County specifically. Talk to me a little bit about business, meaning the flow, the traffic. What have you seen in the industry, not just at Park Ford, but in the industry? And I know you follow this over the last maybe 30 days or so as we started to reopen New York.
Yeah. So, March, April, and May were a struggle. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it was a tough few months. May started to pick up a little bit. Obviously, we're here July 1st, and we just had our June numbers come out. And there's been a huge uptick in business. So what's great about it is that, obviously the businesses that have been struggling for the past few months, they need it. Everybody needs it, right? So consumers are feeling a little more comfortable going out. Consumers are buying things. It's not like 2008, 2009, where we had a recession and people didn't have the money to spend and they didn't want to buy things. Right. So it's a totally different experience now, because people are still willing to buy products and services. They were just afraid to leave their home, which is totally understandable given the circumstances. So, we've had people for the past 3 months that couldn't purchase a vehicle or didn't feel comfortable purchasing a vehicle, and now kind of everybody's coming out of the woodwork, and it's good for us. It's fantastic. The issue that we have right now, and a lot of other places are going to have going forward, is inventory. A lot of plants were shut down, factories were shut down. So we don't, when the plants for us shut down, Ford was forced to make masks, and they were forced to make face shields. So we weren't making cars. A 3-month shutdown affects us for 6 months. So that's the only struggle that we have going forward. But we're going to work through that just like we would anything else.
It's interesting you say that, because like a lot of people during the pandemic, you start saying, I want to spend more time outside, and I wanted to buy my daughter a bike for her birthday. I go to Bikeway in Mahopac, great shop. You've heard of it. It's a great business. I get there and there's no kid bikes. None. There's one. It's a used bike. There's no kids bikes. Yeah. And she said, there was just no production. They stopped production. So there are no bikes. And it just boggled my mind, because, you think about it, when COVID really hit me was when the NBA shut down the season, when they suspended the season. That was when I like stopped for a second. I looked at the TV screen and I said, this is a lot bigger than the NBA season. It's a lot bigger than closing your doors. The ripple effect for months, with people is going to be tremendous. So that's interesting. So what are some of the things that if you want to get into, what are some of the things that you think will adjust with the inventory being so low? Like, what do you think the expectations are of a customer? If they want to buy a car, do you think the expectation is, I understand that I have to wait 3 months now to get a Ford? What's the story there?
You know what? I think that the fact that basically the whole world shut down for that 3 months, I think it's helped a lot of people with patience.
Yeah, sure.
People are very understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I have a vehicle here that a customer wants, it's theirs. They, great, fantastic. The problem is I might not be able to facilitate that for 3 months down the road. So people are being understanding of it, ordering vehicles if we can. By all means, we're doing so. The other thing is people are I'm not even sure how I can explain this, but they are open to other suggestions. So whether they come in for a new car, but I have a car that's got 3,000 miles on it that's a year old, they're willing to consider that. So
but more than in the past. More than in the past. In the past, it was like they had something in their mind. You're just feeling there's a lot more. Listen, I need a car, and I trust you, and let's get one.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think are some of the fears? Like, you're talking to so many people. So what are you hearing from your customers as like maybe the top one or two things they're concerned about, and how are you adjusting the business to keep them safe, keep them happy, and make sure that they have a really good experience with Park Ford?
Well, I mean, safety is number one.
Of course.
So, I mean, obviously, coming to the building, you're wearing a mask just like anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then when a customer's coming in for service, we disinfect their vehicle before we bring it to the shop.
Okay.
Technician's working on it, gloves and a mask.
Yeah.
When the vehicle leaves, before the customer picks it up, it's getting disinfected again. Okay. Customer coming for a test drive, same thing. We have wraps around the steering wheel. Everything's getting sprayed down, disinfected before anybody can touch, even though the whole touching of spreading the virus has been downplayed, but we're not taking any chances.
No doubt, of course.
I mean, anytime this customer feels uncomfortable in coming into the building, we're more than happy to be outside of the building doing whatever we have to do to make them feel comfortable. So, I mean, the things have eased a little bit as far as fears are concerned, but especially for the past 2-3 months, we did I think a really good job here of doing what we had to do to take the steps to make sure people are comfortable being in a vehicle that someone else has been in.
Yeah, and I have to imagine that a large percentage of people that want to buy a car actually want to test drive that particular car. I don't know what the ratio is, but for me, it would probably be 100% of the time. You have to feel the steering wheel and feel how the car responds. So, how are you training the staff, so to speak, to have that conversation with somebody that wants to come in and take a look at a vehicle? That's got to be one of the biggest barriers to not being able to make a decision, is their inability to get into the car. So how are you making them feel comfortable right now with that? Is it the wrap? Like what makes them feel comfortable? Where if you were talking to somebody right now, how would you make them feel comfortable about being able to do a test drive?
Well, I think so. One of the things that we were doing and still are willing to do is we've have set an appointment for the customer to come in. So let's say they're coming tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I'll have the vehicle outside waiting, disinfected with the keys in it, plate on it, ready to go.
That's the appointment concept, like you were talking about. Almost exactly. Like white glove. Like we should have been doing this the whole time. But that's great. That's great.
So the car's all set, disinfected, ready to go. The other thing too is within reason of distance from the dealership. I can't tell you how many houses I've been to, brought the customer the vehicle that they wanted to test drive. And again, brought all the supplies I needed to disinfect the vehicle when I got out. Same thing. They came back, did a test drive around the neighborhood, came back, re-disinfected the vehicle.
That's interesting. So whereas I would come to the dealership, jump in your car with you, we'd go down Route 6, go to the lake, pick up a sandwich, and come back. You're saying that maybe you're driving to a customer's house because they're a motivated person. They're saying the right things. They're interested in buying a car. You drive it over to them. You disinfect it. They get in. They drive the car. They come back. You talk at their house.
Yeah.
Then you go back to the shop.
Yep. Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean,
that's awesome.
It's just the way you have to adapt.
I'll move that.
Just the way we had to adapt. And it was, you know what, I don't mind doing it. Our salespeople don't mind doing it. Dropping customers' vehicles off for service, picking them up for service. It's part of the business. This is what we do. I mean, we're here to serve the customer, and whatever it takes is what we're going to do.
That's great, man. I just have like two more questions for you that I want to make sure that we get out, which is, let's just talk about like management for a second as a business owner, because a lot of people are going to watch this video and they're consumers. Some people are going to watch, they're in the public and they're not a customer of yours, but some people, they actually own a business, and some of them might actually be people that you're in this business together with. Management wise, what's changed in your style, in your approach, in your expectations, in your communication? Can you just give me a couple of good nuggets, gold nuggets, on how Park Ford has adjusted in their management style over the last 3 to 4 months?
So I think the biggest thing is probably understanding what everybody's going through. So, I mean, everybody's going to have an employee that might have a young child at home that's not going to school, that can't go to camp. And you kind of have to adapt that employee's work schedule or their
Sure.
roles at work to be able
Sure.
to work at home if they need to. So let's take my cousin Danielle, who's at the front counter normally, who's been working here for a few years now. She handles all of our internet leads.
Yeah.
Okay, she is really the face when everybody walks into Park Ford. So people got to know her, people got to recognize her voice. She would have set the appointments for customers to come in. They're used to seeing the person that they set the appointment with. Now she's got a 9-year-old son at home who she had to now help teach school. School's over, so he wants to. She has no camps really for him to go to. There are some, but nothing that really adapted what her schedule would be. So now we have to say, hey, Danielle, can you effectively do this job at home? And she says, I don't know. Well, I need you to do your job still. You know, so she figured it out. She worked around it. She's done a fantastic job of getting people through the door when we had appointments to set, and we worked around her schedule more than her working around us. And also to go along with that is we took the employees that did have a fear of coming to work and either put them in a situation where they were isolated and they felt more comfortable. So for some of my technicians, some of them wanted to work in a bay by themselves. Separate some of the bays where they were not working right next to each other all the time. So just to figure out what we had to do to keep everybody safe, keep everybody happy. But it just took a little bit extra thinking. Is all it comes down to.
That's great. Hey, listen, Nick, thank you so much for sharing, what you've done over the last 3 months, how you see the future, how you see things changing in your industry, what adjustments you've made. Thanks for being so candid about some of your fears and some of the proactive things you did. If any car dealership out there is watching you speak, I don't think he's for hire. I think he's stuck at Park Ford, so you can forget that. But two last questions before I let you go. One is, I want one fun fact about Nick D'Andrea for the public. One fun fact that nobody knows about you. What's one great thing, a big secret? Is it that you love Billy Joel and you love karaoke? Is it that you secretly love like raspberry sorbet? Like, what is it about Mr. Nick D'Andrea that makes you interesting? One fun fact.
It's funny you should say that. Me and Billy Joel have the same birthday, May 9th. And I'm a big Billy fan, always have been. But
wow.
What's kind of crazy is I have a boat out on the lake, and I am 32 years old. It took me until 31 years old to learn how to dive.
Learn how to dive?
Yeah, could not dive for the life of me. Every time I tried to dive, I would just belly flop. And I got it down pat now. I think I might look awkward, but I do go in head first.
Yeah, you don't go in feet first, which is good. That's good. And tell me, in 60 seconds to 2 minutes, what do you think is your favorite story? You've been at the dealership for a long time now. What's one of your best stories of a client experience, customer experience you had, where you just felt like $1 million after everything was said and done? Just tell me about a really good memory.
You know what? I'll tell you a recent one.
Okay.
I had a customer of mine, a customer that had called up on a very unique vehicle that we had. And there was about 5 of them in the entire country. And this customer was trying to travel via train and then drive the remainder of the way.
Okay.
It was a 23-hour drive otherwise.
Okay.
So customer the entire time throughout the entire process was terrified of coming here from such a long distance and having a problem and not knowing what the vehicle was going to be like, never drove it, all that. Understandable concerns.
Yep.
customer got here, and the way I conduct myself and our business is transparency. I mean, I'm not going to ever have somebody come here and not know what's going to happen prior. There's no surprises. So the customer got here, ended up having to drive the entire way because his trade-in vehicle didn't fit on the train, and drove here the whole way through the night, 23 hours, and ends up coming here. Had a great experience. They took the vehicle, drove all the way back, and called me up immediately and just told me how awesome his experience was coming to Mahopac. He went ate at Blue on the Lake, had an awesome experience there.
That's right.
And he was just super happy, and stuff like that that makes me happy. So when we can go that extra mile and make sure the customer's comfortable, they have a good experience, especially from such a far distance.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That's a nice long drive in your new car. I remember when I bought our Town and Country from you years ago, I bought it. We drove it straight to New Jersey from there. We drove like a 4-hour trip, and the whole ride there, I'm playing with all the new toys. They had all the tip stuff and the fingers, and it was great. The seat warmer, I was so happy. So nothing like a long drive when you first get your car. Nick, this has been a great talk. I have a lot of respect for you and your family. So does the Putnam County Business Council and the community. Thanks for sharing your stories today. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Best luck to you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
You're welcome.